Okay, so we're live. Two thousand 2015, yeah, 2015, yeah. Okay. Owen, 1 second, 1 second, Owen. I think we're not listen. I think you're pretty quiet. Let me increase your volume right now. Sorry, guys. We're just tweaking the sound as we go. So can you try again, Owen, please? No sound. Okay. Uh, so let's try now.
Hey, is this much better? Can everyone hear me now? Well,
Welcome to
welcome to
streaming.
streaming.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, cool, awesome. Mr. Hodge, how you going, man?
What's up, Andrew?
Yeah, great to see a few familiar names there. Hey, so let me just kick this off again. I'll just do a quick introduction because I really want to get into what the meat of this this Twitch stream is all about, and that's really about giving feedback to to people that are on this journey of getting into visual effects and games and these creative industries that we know about and love. And I'm really excited to launch this Twitch stream today because it's our first one, and obviously a few technical issues, but I think as we go along, it's going to get much better. So today, Paul is going to be the one that's going to be kind of driving this series of Twitch streams, and it's going to be just revolved around giving just feedback, really. And it's when we look at the Rookies website, we've got our different levels, and we have our debuts, we have our players, we have our contenders, and then we have our rookies. So these different levels are the different stages that people are on their journey. So we want to be able to go, hey, you know what, you're a debut. We want to be able to get industry professionals in here and giving you some feedback. It doesn't matter if you're kind of already graduated and got a demo reel. We just want to be able to give that sort of feedback. So we thought, you know what, Paul's been in the industry now, and he's got an incredible story of actually coming through the rookies. And when I first seen Paul's work, I was really, knew that he was going to be a bit of a rock star. And you can see on the screen there, this is just really highlighting our different levels as a user type on the rookies. So debut, there's a short explanation there that it explains exactly what each of those levels are. From debut, where you're a complete novice, got really no knowledge about how to get into the industry, maybe you play a few games or watch a few films, right through to our rookie, which these are the guys that have graduated, got strong demo reels, they're already applying for jobs, and maybe already got sort of freelance gigs under their belt. So we're going to select, with Paul's kindly gone through, selected a couple of portfolios from each of these different levels. And what we're going to do, and this is this theme for the series going forward, is what we're going to do is we're going to, just bring up Sync Sketch, which is a really cool feedback tool used a lot for animators. And we're going to just load up those portfolios and then just, go through and give some feedback. Paul is going to be driving this going forward, so he's going to be inviting on his friends from the industry, texture artists that are doing great things in the industry, and just having a bit of fun with it. So I'm going to hand it over to Paul, and he can talk a little bit about his history. We've seen his show reel at the start of the show, and I'm going to hand it over to Paul so he can talk about his career so far.
Well, thank you, Alvin, for the introduction. Again, it's always a pleasure to be with you and to be here again. I've been with the rookies since 2015, like you said, and it's been a wild ride because I remember I had to finish my demo reel back then because of the rookies. So the rookies helped me put a deadline on my projects, and I felt like if it wasn't for the pressure that the rookies gave me, I wouldn't, got a job in the first place. So, and since then, I've been seeing like all the effort that you guys have been putting helping students, and I've been a judge for what 3 years now, and it's been great, and it's super inspiring, right, to see like all these students coming, uh, putting their works on the rookies, and then I just get super inspired by it. And then a couple months ago, he invited me to start this series here. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us to review some student work, but also like bring artists that are well known in this industry, even people that are not well known in the online world, but they're well respected in the community and the industry. Just so they can talk a little bit with the students and then give their insight and feedback, right? So I think it's gonna be super cool. I already have a cool list of people that I think will be happy to join us and chat for a bit. And the other thing is, it's not just about sitting here and doing the reviews, right? It's also about having a fireside, like a chat, just talk about their life, talk about their career, and all that. So I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about myself. I'm just briefly explain a bit of my career. I came from Brazil. I came from a very small town in Brazil called Almenara. So just hello to all my Brazilian friends that I know that are there.
Yay!
I know that Braddock is a good friend of mine, and he worked with me in my first the first CG company that I worked in Brazil, and he was the guy. Back then, I wasn't working with 3D. I was just doing motion graphics, but he was the guy that knew everything about 3D and modeling. And we're still good friends today. We play games all the time. So, hello, Braddock and todo mundo do Brasil que tá vendo a gente aí. But yeah, so I came from Brazil. I studied at Think Tank in Canada in 2014. And then in 2015, I got my first job in the industry as a junior generalist. I worked as a generalist doing a bit of modeling, texturing, look dev, and a bit of lighting for a year or so. And then I specialized in texturing. And then since then, I've been pretty much only texturing and doing a bit of look dev as well. So I worked at Skinline for a couple of years, and then I went to Method Studios, and then I went to
What's that small company? There's a small company in New Zealand. What's that called?
yeah, I went to New Zealand for a bit to work there, and I just came back. I just came back what, a month ago, and I've been just taking a break from the industry because my goal now is just to start producing my own content for a bit and also developing new skills. I'm really getting into Unreal right now, and I also want to start my own personal projects and create my own content. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I've been up to these days.
And tell us a little bit about your experience at Weta Digital. Obviously, it's very you're quite isolated over there, and you're far removed from your family. And you went over there, and your partner stayed behind in Vancouver. Tell us about your experience of working there and the whole deal.
It was a great experience. The thing is, I actually plan on writing an article about this experience because I like to call it the agony and the ecstasy. There's a book that I read based on Michelangelo's life story, and that's the name of the book, and it's a great book. And I felt the same when I went to New Zealand because on one side I was working in one of the best VFX companies in the world. I had an amazing experience. I met amazing artists there. But on the other hand, I was away from everyone. I was away from my girlfriend. I was away from my friends. And I got into a deep depression for a while. So that's something that I really want to talk about. And then a lot of people, they don't have these discussions about mental health in our industry. So I really want to talk about it a bit more. And then I just urge people to ask for help. And that's what I did. And that's the reason why I came back to Canada to begin with. Like the main reason was I needed to be close to my girlfriend, to my friends. Even though the experience that I had at Weta was the best that I could ever had. I can't even explain how much I learned from them. So it was a great experience. But again, I made a choice to leave all that behind, and also the safest country in the world. When you think about COVID, right? Like I left it all behind just to be with my girlfriend, and I tell her like, listen, this is love, because I left the safest country, and I just came here. So
yeah, that's serious, right? She can't fault you for your commitment there.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so I think that's it.
So yeah, awesome, man. And like I was just going to say, your journey. We've been tracking you since your early days of entering into the Rookie Awards, and you've done a phenomenal job of being able to sort of promote yourself. You were very active on doing training tutorials for beginners. You really, stood out from the pack. And I think, there's a really big lesson to be learned for people trying to get into the industry about, how to stand out, because there's so many people trying to get into this industry. But it doesn't take that much to kind of elevate yourself. And you built a really good following online. I think what I loved about you, Paul, was, that you're very humble. You're very honest. You tell, your early experiences of getting into the industry, they were really grassroots. They were honest. This is the problems that I've found. I really struggled with this, and this is what I mentally went through and had my checklist and how I dealt with. And I think we've talked offline a little bit about new people coming into this industry and how they have to not only obviously you need the talent to a degree. You need to be able to understand how to texture and do that sort of thing, but there's a whole nother separate set of skills, which is really how to communicate with people. If you're a junior, first time getting a job in a company, how are you dealing with talking to senior people and the respect and that interaction with people? And I think what you've done and how people respect you is because you come in, you're like a sponge. You wanted to learn right from the start. You just listened, you soaked it all up, and you just fine-tuned your skills. I think that's a really good takeaway for people trying to get into the industry, is just that that ability to be able to adapt in an environment. And I think that's your grassroots. That's where you came from in Brazil, and what you've learned as a kid growing up, right? So well done, man. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for saying that. I think the most important thing in this industry is that you have to find a fine balance between promoting your work and keeping the respect in the industry, because there's a lot of people that are old school in the sense of they don't understand if you put yourself out there too much, right? So I always try to find a balance in like not overdoing it, because I know it can be annoying when you see people that just focus on getting attention or getting followers. And that's one thing that I always try to focus in my career, was to focus on the quality of my work rather than just on the following that I have, right? I do love sharing what I know, and I have my articles on my website. I have a lot of tutorials that I create. But I always like to go back and think, okay, am I moving forward, or I'm just like repeating the same things that I've done in the past, right? So I last year was interesting because I pretty much stopped creating content, because when I was working at Weta, I was like, this is the best place for me to learn, so I'm just going to stop all this and just focus in learning. And that was the best choice, the best thing that I've done, because you can have like 100,000 followers, but if you don't develop your craft, you're just going to stay behind, right? Like, and that's what I'm always trying to do. Just like the reason why I share with people and I try to give back to the community, it's mainly because when I was in Brazil, I didn't have access to anything. the only access that I had to all this knowledge was through tutorials, and it was through internet, and it wasn't even YouTube back then. It was just forums online and all that. So I understand the power of us artists creating that kind of content. And I think we even have a good example here right now, which is Andrew. And Andrew, he's been doing like pretty much the same thing, and even better than I am doing, just creating like a consistent kind of valuable content, that is quite valuable for the community. He explains how the modeling workflow works in this industry, and I think this is the kind of stuff that people want to know, right? So I just try to filter all the things, because if you go online now, you're gonna find a lot of tutorials, but some of them they're just repeating the same thing over and over again. So what I try to do is just think about things that it's also, like I said, like referring to social skills as well. I think social skills are really important, and it's really nice to talk about these things, as and see how people respond to that, right? But yeah, thank you so much. And now I'm back, and I'm trying to go slowly get back into my articles and to my tutorials, and hopefully my YouTube, I'm gonna start posting some fresh content soon. So just follow me there, Paul H.Paulino, on YouTube and Instagram, and I would just start doing more stuff.
Yeah, awesome. Looking forward to it.
Cool.
And for those people that don't know, Andrew Hodgson 3D, go check out his Twitch channel. Andrew, I've been stalking your stuff as well, man. Really great work. I love the breakdown and the explanation that you give. Very succinct and articulate. I love it. So, and
I would love to have Andrew here as well. Like he can talk.
Man.
It would be great if he could talk about his cooking skills. Because he just really
and your bread making skills.
Yeah, because I'm really into cooking, and Andrew just he just blew out of the park, man. He's doing like so many amazing dishes, and now like he's doing a lot of content online on Twitch, so it's a great guy to follow.
It's a little pet passion of mine. I don't know if you know this about me, Paul, but I trained as a chef when I left school, and I was a chef for almost 10 years and worked with Gordon Ramsay and Marco Pierre White and all those guys in the London back in the day.
Did he put the 2 pieces of toast in your ears? Oh,
yeah. So I mean, I think we all love our cooking, mate. I'm pretty passionate about it myself, but it's great to see that people have side interests outside of visual effects, and I think this is something that you're going to talk more about later during this whole series as well, is what people actually do outside of this whole 3D bubble, right? So really looking forward. Man, I'm so excited for this series, and I think everyone's pumped for it. So. Yeah, if you wanna just start looking, should we start looking at some stuff that we've pulled up? And these are random portfolios that Paul's selected from the Rookies website. And like I said, there's various levels here, and we're just going to kind of touch on them and just help people.
Exactly. Can you see my screen? Sorry, I'm trying to. Just trying to keep you here. Sorry guys, I'm still getting used to this. Yes, I have all on the side here now.
There we go.
There he is. Cool. Okay, so I selected a few assets that I saw on the Rookies website. So we have a couple debut assets, a player, 2 players, 1 contender, and 1 rookie. And so we're just gonna go through it, and then I'm just gonna give you my thoughts on it and how we could improve. Just as my personal opinion, and then Owen, feel free to join me and say if you have any thoughts, or if you thought about something. So let's start with this asset. It was done by Daniel Gomez. So thank you, Daniel, for submitting this to the Rookies website. Thank you so much. So we're going to take a look at it. And we are using Sync Sketch now. And the cool thing is we can draw, right? We can, woo, look at that. Cool.
We both can draw at the same time. It's exciting.
Yeah. No, we can't do it at the same time, but yeah.
No, we can't. Not quite. Yeah, almost. But yeah, so yeah, just on the side there, you can see that we've got debut, we've got a player, we've got a couple of contenders, and we've got a rookie. So we're going through the full spectrum of people that can, create their portfolios on the rookies. So the rookies, it's only for junior people people that are teaching themselves or students, but professionals cannot set up their portfolio on the rookies website. We sort of, as a professional, you've got places like Artstation, and that's really where we say, hey, you know what, this is really about, people trying to get in. There's amazing content on there, but it's really for your tribe or for your community of people trying to get in. So you can see here we've got a debut. And this person's, they're doing a bit of a crossbow here, and I think, we're looking at it from a texturing perspective, and maybe Andrew could throw in a few comments if we can see dodgy modeling going on or something. But from a texturing perspective, what are your thoughts on this asset, Paul, to start with?
Well, so to start with, I think this asset is a great choice from a texturing perspective. So if you're choosing an asset to showcase your texturing skills, I think a crossbow is a beautiful and a great asset to showcase the skills. The only downside, depending on your skill level, is like I usually like to tell students to start, if it's your first asset ever, I would rather start with something that you can have in hands, so you can see the textures, you can see the model close up instead of relying just on photos. Right, because sometimes depending on the references you have some distortion, and you don't know how the object surfaces will react to the light. But I think storytelling wise, I think a crossbow is a beautiful asset because it gives us a lot of different materials to explore. So yeah, I think good job on choosing this asset. I think there's a lot of things you can do with it. The other thing I would say is it would be really nice to have references right next to it, because it's really hard to judge an asset if you don't have a reference. Because if you start working on it, maybe you have something in mind, and if you're showing this to someone and there's no reference, you can't really tell what he's aiming for, right? The other thing I would say before I brought some references so we can look at it together, Alwyn. But another thing I would say is like the background is a bit distracting to me. I think the color doesn't help the asset, and I think it's just a bit out of place. So in doubt, I'll just keep it black. Keep a black background, and it's good enough for me. And if you want to get a bit fancy, you can either add like a blurred, background, or something a bit more toned down, so it doesn't grab their attention right away. Right. Yeah,
I think it's some people prefer black, some people prefer mid gray. I think with this sort of stuff, I think it's good where we sort of refer back to our industry experience, right? And you go, all right, if I'm working in the industry, how am I doing a dailies session, and how am I showcasing my work? If you can get as close to a professional setup as possible to be able to showcase these assets, it's gonna bring your level of professionalism when you're showcasing the stuff to the next level. Yeah. So I mean, personally, I prefer just mid-gray backgrounds. It just it saves when you've got. I think sometimes when you have the blacks or the white, you lose contrast in what the actual in the focus of what your asset is. So you just for me, I always say, and you prefer black, Paul. For me personally, I prefer just mid-gray. Like it's just it's neutral. It's not distracting from the asset. And I think we've got one. I think one of the rookies, one of the assets further down, does it really well. They've got like a Macbeth chart. They showcase it off. But as a debut, I think just lose the colorful backgrounds. It's too distracting.
Yeah.
And to your comments about asset, I think it's a great, something small, something simple, great to start with.
Yes. So I selected a few references that I found online, and I think we can maybe look at it, and then we can see how we can, improve this asset. So if you look, there's a website that I found. So if you go to the mapmuseum.org website, I was, super impressed by the collection that they have in this website, man. They have so many of their collection in here, and some of them they have a really good high-res images. So if you just go here, if you just go to the website and then you search for a collection, I just put crossbow here. You can even, that's the craziest thing about this website, you can even choose the type of material that you want to isolate. Cool. And you can choose the date, and you can choose the department, you can choose the geographic location and all that. And in this case, I just want the artworks with image. So let's look at this together. So we have a bunch of nice crossbows here. There's one that I found that was pretty cool. So this one, I think it's similar to what he had there. And if you go here, some of them are really high res. So you can get really close to it and then see the amount of detail, right? So if we look at this crossbows, I think it can give you an idea.
Andrew had a quick comment in there just saying, the model's too clean, needs heaps of imperfections. And I think, you're right. Like that definitely adds to your model. And we can look from this reference, you'll see, and Paul, you can explain a little bit about, because there's a fine line between, sort of where modeling finishes and texturing picks up. So you can add a lot of those imperfections with the texture maps as well. And it's again, this comes with experience of knowing how much modeling detail you need to add in and what you can get away with texturing.
Yes.
So it's good shout about just adding more imperfections in.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the thing is, it doesn't matter. So you can have the best textures in the world, but if your model sucks, it doesn't matter. So it's you have to work well on your model, and in this case, I think if you add a sculpt pass on the model, so see like all these imperfections, if you just have a sculpt pass, you can just break all the sharp edges and just make it more interesting, right? So there are many things you can do in the modeling stage just to make this even more interesting. Just breaking the lines that are too perfect and too straight. So I think that would add a lot to it. And in terms of the materials and the textures, so there's something I noticed. I think there's also something. Can you? Yeah. That's exactly what you're doing there. But there's also like the metal itself. Like I think this was supposed to be kind of metal, right? This one.
Yep.
What else? And even this one. They're not reacting well to the light. So I think maybe the lighting it's a bit. It's not helping. But also like the shaders, they're not reacting well to this light. So that's something that you can fine tune. And this goes more into the shading part than texturing, right? Like sometimes you can get a really good metal working without putting any textures, right? You can just tweak the IOR and then all the settings before you even throw textures. Sometimes you don't even need a lot of texture work. You just need like maybe a roughness pass just to add some smudges to it. And I think it will look great right away.
Yeah, the other thing I was just going to add there, I'm just quickly drawing on, you can see that the shadow is way over here on the side. It's always nice to have a bit of a ground plane and to make sure your shadow falls. It looks a bit odd where the shadow's sitting way over here and just sort of floating. So it's always really nice to ground your asset, or have at least a ground plane that's reflect the shadow over here just looks a bit odd.
Yeah, and even the way this photo is presented, I think it's even a nice way to present something, right? Like it's just in a backdrop, and you can see how nicely positioned it is, right? And there's also this.
So if we
Sorry.
go ahead, Paul.
No, it's just that there's another website, and I think you also saw this one, Owen. It's called vikingsword.com, and it's just a forum with a bunch of weapons. And then I found this topic here with just a crazy amount of references and breakdowns of crossbows.
Yeah, awesome. So if we were to kind of round this one off, Paul, like if we were to say, hey, what's the top 10 or top 5 bits of feedback we could give to this guy, like straight off the bat, we'd go, hey, the background color's not great. Maybe get a ground plane that's the shadows falling nicely on. Look at adding some modeling detail to it. I would look at the reference, and obviously, there's the metal, trying to get that looking a bit more, used and worn. Again, the reference, and you're gonna keep coming back to this. And I know, even people like Andrew are gonna say reference is pinnacle to every asset that you do, right? You need to have, because the thing is, even when we're working in the industry, it's amazing how our minds can drift off, and we're just, texturing things and painting things how we perceive them to be. And your reference is really your North Star, right? Think of it as your point that you just keep coming back to. And you should always have your reference up on your computer when you're working away, because it's like when you start thinking about, maybe I'll just add some detail here. And it's like it needs to be added there for a reason, right? And you always look at reference to go, maybe it's been added there because of, the way that the arrow is grinding down on the front of this metal piece. Everything needs to have a reason and a story to be there. You can't be just adding detail for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And what reference images do, it helps you tell that story.
Yes. And another thing regarding references, and I agree, that's the most important part of the beginning of any project, is I usually like to have multiple references. So I usually have one that I know it's going to be my main one, but I always have different ones that are going to help me in case I'm doing something that do not exist. If you're making a robot, it doesn't mean that you're not going to create everything from scratch, right? That's I think that a lot of beginners, they think that they're going to be better if they do something without a reference, but that's completely incorrect, right? It's the opposite.
Yeah. And just to go to the extreme of that as well, Paul, because I've seen students and people that are building assets, they'll have so much reference that it becomes too confusing, right? So they'll have something like a crossbow that's really aged and damaged and worn to something that's really, really brand new, right? And then they're trying to work out, am I making it old or am I making it new? So, when you're first starting out an asset, you need to make a few big decisions. And I know you do this. You create a list and go, okay, what is the approximate age of this thing? What is it? How much weathering's going on it? How much damage? Is it brand new? All these. Is it a piece that's been outside in the environment with rain and all these atmospheric conditions that are affecting the texturing? So there's a whole thought process that needs to happen before you even start texturing. The more that you can work out exactly how you're going to texture this piece before you even start texturing, the easier your job's going to be.
Exactly. No, yeah, 100%. And again, you just have to be careful to not get overwhelmed with all these references, right? Maybe find a fine balance. I usually like to have 3 tiers. I have my first main reference, and then I have my second wave of references, and then I also have some digital versions of the asset that I'm creating. So my inspiration folder. So let's say when I was working on a robot, there was Chappie, for example, was a huge inspiration for me that was done by Justin. So I wanted that as like a goal for me in terms of quality. So I put that there and I said, okay, this is my goal, right? This is my goal quality-wise. And then, but I would not use that as a reference for the texture per se. I would use the real photos for that, right? So maybe, So maybe we can move on to the second one.
Yeah. I'm just going to answer a question there. Somebody asked, the portfolio, is it just for portfolios sent before the stream? No, you know what? This is just people that have created portfolios on the rookies site. It's not even part of the rookies comp. Like, I mean, it could be. It's just random people that have created portfolios. We've kind of gone through and hand selected, a few that we think are, that could do with some help. But you don't have to be part of the Rookies Awards or comp to be selected.
Yeah, you can just submit them via the website. I'm just showing the Rookies website now. You can just upload there your stuff. And I just went there and I just searched for the keyword texture or texturing here, and then I just went through and I found the ones that I thought would be interesting to talk about. But you don't necessarily need to be in a competition to be seen here. You can just put your portfolio there and that's it.
Yeah, cool. I think, let's jump on to the next one, Paul, the boots, because we're going to be here for about 10 hours if we don't.
Yeah. Let's move on.
Actually, just have you got the web link for the boot here? Because I just wanted to highlight one thing, and it's really important, when people, particularly even if they're creating a portfolio on the Rookies website, is, making sure that you create your portfolio correctly, right? So what I mean by correctly, it's not just adding one image to your portfolio and saying, this is it sort of thing. You need to add a description. You need to, and if you're a debut, then and you've only got one render, like I think this person only had one render of the boots, but show a bit of a breakdown of how you got there. Show the modeling, show the topology that you've used, that you've created this model with. Show the texture maps that you can do. I think, you can see this person only had one, right?
Yes.
So, we get a lot of recruiters coming onto the website, checking out people's work. You need to be able to sell yourself, even if you've only got one render, right? So I would love to have seen a breakdown of how you modeled this. Like I said, some of the textures you use. And there's a really cool feature in the portfolio builder where you can overlay and you can do a swipe through, kind of similar to what you can do in Nuke. And you can just scrub through, and you can go from your model through to the wireframe through to the lit and final render. So having something like that just to showcase your work better is really, really super important.
Yes.
And again, like going back to your point, having the reference that you started from. I want to see this boot and what the reference was, because in the industry, we're not making this up. We're given a design brief, we're given concept art, and we've got to use that as a starting point.
And even if you're working on a creature, something that do not exist, you still have a mood board of things that you got inspired from, right? So let's say if you're working on a character that doesn't exist, but let's say his clothing was supposed to be like a certain type of clothing that exists, right? Like, so we're always going to start from somewhere. We can't just create things from scratch. So let's look at this boot then.
Thoughts. Give us your thoughts, Fully.
Okay. Regarding the asset choice, I think it's an okay choice, but it lacks a bit of personality, in my opinion. Shoes are often a good asset to start with, because you can have a really nice beaten up shoe. There's a girl from Think Tank, and she did this beaten up Converse All Stars shoe a long time ago, and it was beautiful. It was like a huge inspiration for me when I started, and it seemed simple at first, but there's so many details there, and I think that's the point for this one, for example. So I think Timberland shoes are way too common. I think. So if you choose to make that, I would say add a lot of wear and tear and personality to that shoe, because it looks a bit too clean for me, right? It looks a bit too simple. And again, it would be nice to have references, something from the real world, so we can just take a look and refer back to. But I would definitely search for beaten up versions of the same shoes that have been worn, people use that for a long time. Or again, maybe your own shoe would be nice. And I think background wise, I don't think this background helps a lot. I think it's a bit low res, so it Yeah, to me it doesn't help much. It's better than the other one. I think the other one was a bit too extreme color wise. This one is not as distracting, but I would prefer something a bit more simple to begin with, so we can just focus on the asset in question. But again, I would definitely add a sculpt pass to it. Like add some wrinkles, some deeper wrinkles, so it breaks the silhouette a little bit more. It's nice that they have the laces, messy like that. I think that's nice. It adds a bit of personality to it, so it's not just perfectly, tied up. That's good. That's a nice touch in there. But I think, just search for a strong reference of shoes that someone was using, or maybe your own shoe. I actually was doing a test with my boots. I forgot the brand of my boots. What is the name of the brand of those boots from Australia that everyone loves? It's I think I have it here.
Andrew probably knows. He's probably got a pair. Not the Blundell's.
Yeah, this one's. Can you see it?
Yeah. Look at that. That's perfect reference, right? Like, awesome.
Yeah. So I was actually doing a test a couple weeks ago where I was just scanning this boot.
Uggs.
But it's so simple. Nowadays you have a software called MeshLab, and you just take a photo with your own phone, and then you have the mesh that you can start with, right? So it gives you a lot of it gives you a head start on the texture, so you can see how complex the textures are. Even though this shoe, it doesn't look like it's super old, like it looks fairly new.
It's got character.
But when you see it with the scan, there's so much color variation there, and that's something that I'm not seeing here right now. I think it's just the color is a bit too simple. So if you look at shoes online, you're gonna see how much color variation you can find on them, right?
Yeah,
so,
I think it's a good shout, and like you mentioned, with photogrammetry, and you're able to do this stuff now on your phone, and like it's just going to become more and more mainstream. Being able to do this photogrammetry. So assets like this and small assets, you're going to be able to get some pretty cool modeling. But yeah, just to add to that, Paul, you can see there's, you've got some white dust and stuff across. It's all very generic. And this is what we.
Yes, sorry. Alvin? Hey guys, I think we may have lost Alvin.
Or no?
Hello, Alvin?
Am I here? No.
Yes. I think we lost you for a second.
Okay. Am I back?
Yes, I think so.
I'm just trying to work out what the lag. Yeah, sorry, man. Just to recap on that, I'm not going to go on too much. But what we find is, when people are first creating these assets, they'll push it to like 50%, and they're like, "Oh, I'm done," sort of thing. What you need to do is push it to 110%, right? Really mess it up, add all this grunge dirt, all the rest of it, and then you can bring it back. But if you don't take it to 110%, you'll spend a lot of time just iterating on doing, I'll add a little bit more dirt here, I'll add a little bit more dirt there, and you spend a lot of time wasting, trying to get it to 110. So go extreme, and you'll get feedback, and somebody will say, hey, you know what, I love that bit there, but you've gone too much there. So then you bring it back, right? So again, just to the modeling, what you've done well, there's the stitching. I really like the stitching that's going on there. Like Paul said, the laces are working really well. Edges are way too straight for everything. You've been too shy with the dirt. Again, I wouldn't get distracted with the ground, the texture on the ground or the back. I would have just kept again, the focus is on your boots, and adding dirt and just adding, just making that the focus. So whatever you're doing for a background, don't make this the focus, because I'm looking at the textures on here rather than the boots, right? So
and we're
just
judging
focus on.
We're judging the texture
exactly.
on the floor as well, right? So everything you put on your image, we're gonna be judging that as well. So that's why I often tell people, like, this is, I mean, I don't know, like, this is an unpopular opinion, when it comes to portfolios, but a lot of people say I like to put all my work on Artstation, for example. Like for the bad, like when I started out, I put all my works there. And to me, I don't think that's a good idea. I think if I go to your Artstation and you have something that is amazing, but you have something that is really bad, I'm always going to judge your skills based on what is really bad. Because it's your portfolio, right? Like it's your demo reel. And I would rather have like one project that is really well done than if you have like 20 that are okay or bad, right? Like I don't know. I just prefer having something that is really well done and polished than spending a lot of time trying to make everything cool.
Yeah, and I think and that's when we talk about ArtStation as well, like that's really when you're going there, right? So this person is a debut, and you know what I've got to say, as a debut, somebody that's just starting out, this is a pretty decent asset. We've got to give kudos to
great.
We're being pretty. Yeah, we're being pretty hard with our critique and feedback, but you've done a really good job of the modeling, the laces, the actual base textures. I think to take it to that next level, and that it would be actually a really good piece for your demo reel. So, a great piece for your portfolio. So you've done a great job. I would, like I said before, go for it, Paul.
Yeah, I think that's a great start. Like you said, it's just us being annoying. Yeah. But,
all right, let's jump to the next one, man.
Okay, so let's go to Alessio Garçai. Thank you, Alessio, for submitting your asset. So let's look at the link. I have the link here.
Let's see what their portfolio looks like. Have they added more than?
Yeah, so he
did one.
So he did a great job in adding the spheres and the Mac back chart. And he even has like a turnaround of this asset, which is great. And he explained a bit of the pipeline, so that's awesome. Thank you for including that. Really nice, keeping the background simple and not distracting. That's great. And he even had this breakdown here, which is cool. And he even added
brilliant.
this. Yeah, this is pretty cool. That's great. And yes, he added references. Sweet.
Excellent.
Yeah, great job.
And it's not mid-gray, but it's a more neutral background. I think that just to me again, it's still a little bit dark, but when I look at it, I think. When I'm sort of back on the syncs, yeah. So that's cool. That's but actually just going back to that, Paul, just going through the swipe, the overlay there.
Okay, sorry. Go down here.
Oh, you're just there. No. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, a bit of a delay. Yeah, cool. So when you swipe through that, it would have been cool to see the actual topology as well, right? You've got the gray shaded and you've got the final red. It would have been cool to see the topology, just to add that in there so that when we're swiping through, going, cool, really nice topology you've got done there. So that's good. And just even in Sync Sketch here, it would have been cool to have a shadow at the bottom as well, just to have that, just to ground it. I hate when things are floating. That's just my personal preference.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one thing I have to say about this project, Alwyn, let me know what you think as well, is that I feel like the wear and tear looks a bit procedural to me in some areas. I feel like I can notice some patterns that are repeating quite a bit here and there and there. And that's a problem. I mean, this is to me, this is the hardest thing when it comes to texturing. It's understanding how much wear and tear you should add. Because it's hard to find a balance, like you said, when you have a reference that is all worn, that they have rust everywhere, and the other one is a bit more clean. You have to find a balance, right?
Exactly.
What I usually try to do is to start from broad strokes first. I usually like to have one type of wear. Like if you're going for something that is really old and worn out. If you have something that is a bit larger and then you have smaller pieces here. So we can apply some principles of composition to the wear and tear, right? So big, medium, small. So if you have some parts that are larger, and then you have some areas that are small, medium, and then you have some smaller details, I think that visually it looks more interesting to me. And and I also think the light might be a bit too diffused, so I can't really see the metal popping as much. Especially here, I'm not sure if this is supposed to be metal or plastic. It looks a bit like it's almost gray shaded to me.
Yep. No, I agree. I think, if I was to give my feedback, it's very similar to yours, Paul. I'd say I'm going to just jump to that first image. I'm going to say, hey, you know what? This is a classic sort of almost in some ways Substance Painter type look. People throw things into Substance Painter. They throw some materials on there. They throw like a generator, get the edge wear. And, when we look at this base metal, like not every part would be this rusty underneath the actual painted surface. And also, when you look at the painted surface, if it's this rusty and this broken down, the paint would not be this looking, would not look this new as well. So, this is, again, going back to reference, looking at reference, like there would be some elements of bare metal in here and then some rust that comes off it. I think, the metal up here is super clean, super shiny. How it doesn't fit in with the actual story of this rusty part of it. I look at the dirt that's on the hose down here. It stands out too much. A lot of the subtleties of adding dirt and dust, you almost don't want to see it. You don't want it to be obvious. You want it to blend in, but go, oh, you know what? There's some breakup. Again, modeling wise, there could be some dints. This is old. It's way too straight. And to your point, that doesn't look like metal. I would have finished it by having something in here as well. I don't know. It would have been cool to have some old numbers or whatever it is, just to kind of finish it. But as a debut, this guy's as a player. So another 20% on just like looking at reference and being able to tweak this, I think would be. I love the asset. I love the kind of old pump. I think that's a really cool starting point. Yeah. And I think, I've got, I think you've probably got some reference as well.
Yes. I have some references here right now. I just searched for some.
Yeah. Actually, I think it's Miguel asked a question about, like, he never fully understand why people use a Macbeth chart and these environment balls and lighting balls. Do you want to talk about that, Paul? Do you want me to speak about why?
No, I want to learn from you, man, because I have no idea why it.
Well, the Macbeth chart, really the Macbeth chart is used if I was to go out and shoot an asset on set, it's really to calibrate my textures, to go, all right, I would shoot this and then I know exactly what my blacks and whites are, so that when I'm grading my reference images, I know that on set this is what my blacks and white was. So it's really to calibrate my reference images if I was using that. To be honest, if I'm using Substance Painter or some of these painting softwares, and I haven't got the HDR or I haven't shot photo reference from set, then it's really just it's adding no value at all. The light balls, this is just reflecting the environment that is being used to light this asset. Right, so you can see here we've got this, and the gray shade is just to really show where the lighting sources and the hot spots are hitting my gray shaded ball here. So that's kind of what it's used for. Really, Macbeth chart for this type of asset is it's not really doing a lot.
Cool. But yeah, so I think let me see if I have another thing to say. I think another thing that would be cool to add to this asset would be some stickers. When you remove some stickers and then you leave like a part of the glue on it. I think that adds a lot of personality to these assets. I also noticed that the lettering here, it looks a bit too clean and too perfect. So I think it would be really cool to add a bit of breakup to these things. Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
But so, out of 10 with the portfolio set up, I'd be giving this guy probably like a 7.5. I think if he could take it the next 10% with just fixing up the model, adding some imperfections, adding, just fixing the textures and, bringing them together so that the wear and the new is kind of a bit more balanced. I think he's doing a pretty good job, and actually getting a ground plane with a bit of a shadow, I think I'd be giving him, a higher score.
Yeah, great job. And I was really happy with seeing everything, like the references and the Macbeth chart and everything, and the background and all that. So good job. Good job. So let's move on to Rafi Abdullah. So let's look at Rafi's asset. So we have this guy. I've seen this guy in a lot of places. I don't know if maybe someone, if it was a contest or something, but I've seen this asset around. I don't know if it
Actually, no. The West did it as a substance painter tutorial, like an old lamp. So you've probably seen it where people have been doing substance painter tutorials and using the asset.
Oh, okay. Because yeah, I've seen it many times with the same type of asset. I wasn't sure if it was the same model or anything. But yeah, good to know. So let's look at the portfolio, see how it is there. Okay, we only have 2 images, but at least we have an explanation. By the team, okay, so the substance team gave it.
Yeah, okay, boom, there you go.
Okay, cool. So I think this asset,
Sorry, Paul, just sorry to cut you off, mate. Before we get into actually talking about the actual asset, it's, if you're using, and it's great that in the actual description that you've declared that you've used this asset, because if you don't, we would be thinking, oh, maybe this guy's modeled the asset as well. So it's really important to declare what you've done in the description. So well done. You get 10 out of 10 for saying that it was a substance asset that you've used for it. So yeah, cool. Carry on, Paul. Sorry, mate.
No worries. Good job. So yeah, I think asset-wise, I usually like to say, so when I'm telling students, when they ask me like which assets should I choose if I'm starting out, I always like to say that Justin used to tell me that when I was back in school, and I definitely agree. It's nice if your asset has at least 3 different materials that you can play with and experiment. The main reason is because you're showcasing a different range of skills, right? Because if you only have metal, it doesn't. You're not showing me that you can do wood, for example, or cloth, or other surfaces. So I think it's really nice if you could choose assets that give you a better range, right? To explore in the texture and the surfacing, in the texture and surfacing skills. So it would be nice to have the references that you used. Even though this asset was provided by Substance, it was still nice to have some references in hand, right? I think it's called Oil Lantern, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I also have...
Yeah, just while you're looking for that, Paul, I was just going to add, like with these types of assets, again, you got to be really careful with making it look what I call substance look, the look, which is just adding those filters and generators to get that edge wear. Again, just it looks too same all over. Again, it's got to make sense. It's got to why is there, more rust around, here than say, around the base down here, you know what I mean? And why? So just be careful with this it just feels too unified overall with the texturing detail that's been added into it. It's, even with the glass, the same amount of dirt, it just feels like it's got a generator or something that's just adding a generic, dirt over the complete thing.
I agree 100%. And that was actually one of my notes. The wear and rust, it looks a bit too procedural. I would aim for broad strokes first, and then I would add small details. Like you said, just go all out, and then you go back and clean up, and then until it looks good. And then the dust as well, it looks a bit procedural. I have a few references that I found that I think they're quite interesting. Can you see it, Owen, on my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so this reference, I found it was really interesting because it had this kind of detail. And I think it adds some sort of interest to the asset because you break a little bit of the paint, right? So it's not the same color everywhere. So you have some different types of detail here and there. And this one is also a good example. So as you can see, it's not every single edge that is worn out. It's just a few, right? And then you have some grease in some areas, and then the light react differently to these areas, and also the glass in there.
Yeah.
But,
and just even, the metal, that metal arm, and how the specular highlight's so hot on there, like it, why is it not hot up there? You know what I mean? It's just, again, it's just balancing things out so that it all makes sense.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. So let's move forward to our contender.
Yeah.
This is Alexander Tuma. So thank you, Alexander, for submitting.
Shout out to Alexander if he's watching. I actually know Alexander. He's a local guy here in Adelaide.
Oh really? This is a great job, man. Great job. Yep. So let's look at his submission. So so it's nice that he added. I really like the presentation. I really like this board, the wooden board, the chart. Let me see. And he also added the wireframe. Look at that. Cool.
Yeah.
And this is a really difficult asset to model as well. Like this shows a lot of modeling skills. I know that because I suck at modeling and I don't know if I could do it. So good job on that. And I feel like power tools are a great asset. It reminds me of my friend Christian, which is going to be one of our guests moving forward. Christian, he started a think tank with me and also worked as a texture artist for a long time. He also painted a power tool. I think it was a nail gun at a time, and they're just beautiful. Like there's so many materials that you can play with and explore. And I think this one gives you the plastic, gives you the rubber. There's a different type of plastic, and then the metal, right? So it gives you a lot of range to play with. I think my thoughts on this would be my only notes would be mainly with the dust and the wear. I think the dust is a bit all over the place and it looks a bit procedural to me. Because when I look at it, it just looks a bit just spread across evenly throughout the asset. Like I don't see like an area where I see more dust than others. So I would probably be careful with that. And I would also be careful a bit with some of the edge wear work, because sometimes it can come across a bit procedural as well. And yeah, it would be nice as well to have the reference in your submission, so we can look at it and say, okay, this makes sense. But just by looking at it without the reference, I would say just careful with these things. But overall, it's a great model. This is another thing I noticed here. This edge wear, it's a bit too perfect there. So probably be careful with that.
Yep.
Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are pretty much the same as yours, actually. I just thought, some of the dirt and grime, just it's too uniformed across the whole surface. It would have been nice to have, bigger areas, I think, of the dirt and stuff. But I want to say that the actual background and the turntable here. So there's I don't know if you've heard of Cave Academy. It's Jay.
Yeah.
Jay's it used to be a trainer at DNEG. He provides for free. He's like, if you go to his site, Cave Academy, I think it is, you can download a back. Like he's got lighting rigs and sort of light setups. And I know that's where Alex has got this from. So it provides all this turntable and all the rest of it. Really, it's a really good asset to have if you're just concentrating on texturing or modeling and you don't want to deal with lighting. The light rig's already set up the turntable's already there, good to go. So I know that's where he's got that from. But overall, I would probably give this asset, I think this guy's done a really great. Somebody that's from the industry that would be looking at this goes, okay, I know I could probably trust this guy to do a prop or an asset in the industry if I was to hire him. So he gets a tick for me. I think he's done a great job. Couple of the little areas that you mentioned, I think, and then it would be perfect asset for his demo reel.
That's something interesting that I think we could even talk about quickly. It's just because it's a simple object, right? People sometimes are afraid to do that for their demo reel because they're like, oh, but it's going to be a boring thing. People are not going to, my demo reel is not going to stand out. But the thing is, if you start as a junior modeler or a junior texture artist, you're going to start doing this kind of work in a studio. You're not going to start working on creatures right away. Unless you're extremely lucky or you work in a very small studio, it's going to take months or even years, right? Like it took me, It took me a year and a half to work my first digidouble. And I was lucky. I was extremely lucky that I was able to get that, I think it was Flash, my first one. But that doesn't happen, very often. So just expect for your first year, you're going to be doing a lot of rocks, a lot of small assets. So that's why, to me, if I'm judging someone's reel and the person wants to be a texture look dev artist, I want to see him reproducing assets that we have in a production, right? And sometimes we have a bunch of images of the assets that were done. So they film with an asset and then they send us the scan, and then we just have to make that look the same. And sometimes it's a fantastic asset, but it's still a real thing, right? So you have to understand how the real materials work before you try to create things. Because what I see a lot in the submissions is just a lot of people trying to make cool robots, cool creatures without understanding the basics first. And because they think that if they make a creature, they're gonna get someone's attention instead of making a crossbow or a power drill, right? Honestly, like this is just my opinion, but I would choose someone like Alex here, who's done a great job in modeling and surfacing this, than if someone did a bad job in making a creature, right? So if you choose a creature or something more complex, make sure you can deliver the quality. Otherwise, I'm just going to skip it.
Yeah, no, that's really, really valuable advice, Paul, and it's something that we try and tell everybody to do, right? You were lucky, you're gonna, because what happens is you'll get a job, you'll get in there, you'll be given these really basic assets, props and stuff and so forth, and what you're trying to do at each job is trying to get the trust of your lead or your HOD for him to go, okay, he did a good job on that, I might give him a more difficult asset for the next round, right? So you have to go through this building process of gaining people's trust when you're inside the studio, and until you work yourself up to that point, and you might fail at some stage and go, well, that wasn't a great job, and then you have to prove yourself again, but you have to go through this cycle. And once you get to that point, and like you said, you got to the character in an extremely fast time, but you nailed it, and then at that point you were like, okay, cool, you had the trust of everybody to be able to know that you could do character stuff at that point, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I remember like when I started working on Flash back then, it was my first hero asset ever, and then I was terrified, but my lead at the time, Anna, she's probably not watching, but I would be always thankful because she was the one who said, because people didn't want to give it to me, they wanted to give it to her, but then she said, she was sitting right next to me and she saw how I was working on the smaller assets and how quickly I was, getting them done. So she just said, no, I trust Paul to do it. So I'm just going to give it to him and I'm going to supervise him. And I will be forever thankful for that opportunity. And that's how you get opportunities in this industry. You just get a chance, you do it right. And that's why it's so important to master those fundamentals when you're in school. If you can do like this asset in less than a day, right? If you get to a point where you get so fast, where you can do it so quickly, when you get a crazy, because it's the same thing, man. Like I worked on creatures, I worked on characters, digidoubles, uh, uh, robots, machines, and they're all the same. The same thought process that I put on my gas mask, I put on my Leviathan project, which is the big robot. It just took a bit longer because it's a bit more complex, but in the end, it's the same thing. It's just the ability to translate the look, from real stuff to something that is fantastic and that do not exist in real life.
Yep. No, good call.
Okay.
Somebody else had a question about the Macbeth chart. If you want to jump to the next asset, Paul, then I'll just answer this. So, hey, just want to know about the Macbeth chart. Can you explain that a little bit more? What we can do maybe is just, send some links. Essentially what it is if you're on set, you'll take a photo of that Macbeth chart. It's recording lighting information with the colors. Then you would take that Macbeth chart, that image, you would drop it into a nuke script, which would identify exactly what is your blacks and your whites, so that when you've got reference images that you're feeding in, it's going to calibrate your images, your reference images that maybe you're going to reproject onto your asset. If you're not using reference images and you're not reprojecting, it's not a big deal. A lot of people, like for example here, I don't know if Alex used photo reference to project the drill here, but if you're not reprojecting photo reference images that you've taken, then it's not a big deal. It's more just for aesthetics than anything else.
It looks cool. It looks cool as well.
Yeah. It looks like you know what you're talking about, right? A lot of people it looks professional because that's how we sort of present our work when we're in an industry. So it just at least it shows that you can see a Macbeth. You understand the concept, but that's essentially what it's for. All right, let's jump to the last one, Paul. And this.
Okay, so this is. Let's look at the fight.
Carlos
Terroso. Work for the 3D basic modeling master with my at Lightbox Academy. And what else? Sorry. First project with this new software.
Nice.
Yeah, so thank you for adding the description. Thank you for adding multiple images, the reference that he used, the model, the kind of the wireframe. It would be nice if we had an image like this one with the wireframe, but I mean here you can kind of see it how it looks, but it's just me being picky. You're a rookie, so I'm gonna be extra hard here. So we have some of the breakdown of maps. This is also something really important that I didn't see in the other projects, just the breakdown of the maps. For us as texture artists, it's really nice to see your thought process with the maps that you work with. So yeah, thank you for adding that. I don't think this is necessary. I wouldn't care about seeing the substance screen here.
Yeah.
So yeah, and also like this, I don't unless you're writing a tutorial or something cool, but I don't really see a point of adding that. For a presentation, I don't think that adds a lot of value to it. But here we have light spin, which is cool.
Yeah, I think he's done a great job of setting up his portfolio. It gives us all the information we need. This is a really good example of the thought process that he's gone through. The lighting, it showcases all this sort of stuff, which is great. Some of this information could be left out if it was for the final demo reel. For your demo reel, you know what I mean? You'd just maybe have the texture passes. For me, it's kind of like I'm not. If it's there, it's nice. If it's not, I know when I look at the asset, how the texture maps are kind of reacting anyway, so it's not a huge deal. The wipe through of the asset there is really great. Again, just looking at the different render layers that you've used, perfect.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, really great. I mean, overall, I think my comments for this was, he did a really good job at presentation. think, just some of the looking back on Sync Sketch, looking at some of the specular breakup, it just feels a little bit generic. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And just, I guess, just some of the shininess is just the highlights, the specular highlights are a little bit hot. It just feels a bit brand new, even though I think it's supposed to be. It just feels, I don't know. I always find things a lot more interesting when they're a little bit aged or broken up or dirt or whatever it is. I
Yeah.
don't know how you feel about that, Paul.
I completely agree. But even things that they do, if they don't look, because I think sometimes we have this idea that to make something look old, you have to add a lot of wear and tear and then a lot of. But no, I think you add that kind of detail just by adding small details, right? Like you add a bit of surface variation. You do a sculpt pass where you break the edges, and you do like you don't have to add smudges everywhere, because the thing about that's the main problem with the substance mindset these days that I see in students a lot, is that they throw a preset and they don't think about what they're doing. They just think it's cool. And I've done that myself. When I started using Substance, I was like, oh my god, this is awesome. But then when you look in real life, that things are not as worn out. If you look at even at the references that he added here, if you look at them, they're pretty clean. But then if you look at the surface, you see like the way the spec hits that area, and then it just breaks. There's like a micro noise, a surface noise that is breaking that spec. So it's not like super hot. It's just like it's been broken by the surface detail, and also for maybe a bit of roughness there as well. So it's also about balancing your shaders, right? Like, and making sure that they're reacting correctly. And sometimes, and again, this is more like a shader thing than texturing, but sometimes it's all about dialing the shader first before you even throw any textures in it. Sometimes you can just get it done just with a procedural in V-Ray or Arnold or Unreal, just with the procedural that you have, and then textures would just add an extra layer of realism to it.
Yeah, you're right. I think people get excited with the specular breakup and the roughness and the dirt and all the rest of it. Like you said, you have to take it to 100 to 110% and then bring it back, right? And it's sometimes the classic is when somebody presents their portfolio and it's almost they're pointing an arrow. Look at my specular breakup. Look at it. I can see it here. We don't want it to be obvious. You don't want the eye to be drawn to the specular roughness, breakup, and all the rest of it. It's the subtlety, right? So when the light goes across the surface, you go, oh, look at that micro detail that it's picking up when it's rolling across your surface. It's the subtleties that really help sell the asset.
I agree.
Yeah.
Evandro has a question, Owen, asking, will a company contract someone from outside of the country just to make the texture for props? I know that the visa is complicated. So I think that's back to our discussion regarding, making a simple prop first. This mindset is, I'm not saying that you should avoid making something, fantastical or crazy, because that's what people think when I say this, like make a simple thing first. The idea is, if you're starting out, if you make that, you're just developing your skills to see things. Because let's say if you just skip that part and you rush into a creature, if you make that creature look bad, like it doesn't look real, it just looks meh, it just looks like everything else that you see out there, it's not gonna grab anyone's attention anyway. But if you spend your time developing your eye, sharpening your eye with things that exist first thing, you're going to have a solid asset for your demo reel to begin with. And then from there, you can jump into something more complex. Like that's what I did. That's after I finished my props, I made a cassowary, which is an organic piece. And then later, I worked on Leviathan, which is a robot, right? But the principles were the same, right? Like I used the same things that I learned from those props, So it is really hard for someone outside. If you live in a country like Brazil that you don't have access to large companies, it might be really hard to have these opportunities. But if you're starting out, you have to sharpen those skills anyway, right? And then you get a good example is my friend Bruno Camara. You probably know his work, but he's he's been working for a long time as a freelance. He did a lot of work for Blur and other companies, and he has a lot of fantastical creatures and things that are incredible, right? Like, and he really got Method's attention here in Vancouver, and then he came and worked for. I was working with him, and then he decided to go back to Brazil. But he's been working for so long, and then he had all these crazy, fantastical projects. But if you ask him to do something, from real life, he can do it as well. Because he sharpened his skills to a level that he can do whatever he wants now, right? So that's my thought on that.
Yeah, and just to add to that, will companies contract someone for? Yes, they will. Well, I think in this current climate, where studios now have to look at options outside of local talent because the restricted, then is like Paul said, if you've got the skill set and you've got good assets, then I think that your the opportunity to be able to be contracted from a studio is a lot better than what it was before this whole COVID thing. So again, like Paul said, just keep honing your skills, getting your portfolio together. But I would definitely be, wouldn't be scared about trying to apply for jobs while you're working remotely right now. I think it's the perfect time to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I think we've got through that whole list of debuts, contenders, players, and rookies demo reels. So it was fun, dude. Like, I honestly really enjoyed giving the feedback. I hope people got a lot out of it. And Paul, man, you're going to be leading the charge on this, and I'm really excited about who you're going to be inviting on to be able to do, to have these discussions with. If people, I think at the moment we're just randomly selecting portfolios. So make sure that if you want to be selected, that you kind of update your portfolio to kind of to cover all the points that we've mentioned today, and get it in a really good place. So Paul, I don't know if you want to add anything more, mate. You can.
Well, I just want to say thank you again, Owen, for the opportunity, and I think this space would be a great place for us to just chat, with we had a lot of cool people, and just listen to the feedback of who's starting out, and we hope we can help them somehow with this, with this insights, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, again, we're still starting this thing out, so we're still having some technical issues, and I think it went quite well this first time. We didn't burn anything.
I'd love to see people give us some scores on how we went technically. I know Andrew will probably give us a -3.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, for being our coach, our stream coach today. And he's like, ban this person. Just,
Yeah, I know.
This.
That was good, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. Because we don't know anything really about streaming. So this is our first time. I hope we. Of course you did. You helped us just set up the audio and everything. But it was great. So do you guys have any last questions? I think we have maybe 5 more minutes. Oh, we got a 7 from Tozol.
A solid 7. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that.
7's great. Yeah.
I know. You know what you have to do? You have to get Andrew on the series, mate, and actually just find out all the little tips and tricks of how to stream.
Yeah.
He could probably do a session for people. On Twitch alone.
And teach us how to Twitch. Leo is also doing a great job with his gaming channel. I think let's just ask him for his thoughts.
Yeah.
Did I review in Portuguese? Did I review in Portuguese? Thiago, I don't think so, because I mean most of the people on the rookies, they don't speak Portuguese, so I think
maybe you could do a special one though. You could do a special one day. Just do a Portuguese one.
Sure. I mean, if we have enough people, right? Because that's the main thing that I find with creating content in Portuguese, is that when I don't have a lot of people watching. 'Cause I've done that on my YouTube, and not a lot of people cared about it. So, but if we have people, I'll be happy to do it. So
we can help promote.
Yeah. make sure to turn off the stream. Oh, that's dangerous, especially because I'm. Yeah. Oh, we're losing Alwyn again. Alwyn. So yeah, I'm by myself again.
I think I lost you, Paul. I'm gonna let.
You're back.
My internet's cutting out. Australian internet, mate. It's terrible. It's horrible. I'll let you wrap it up. Thank you very much, Paul. Forever grateful for helping us with our Twitch channel, and mate, look forward to the rest of the series. We're going to schedule everything once Andrew gets a plan. Oh, sorry, once Paul gets a plan of who he wants to invite on, and then we're going to go from there. So just keep an eye out for the schedule on our Twitch feed, and check us out on Discord, therookies.co.
And on my Instagram.
Look forward to talking.
Yeah, let's go to Andrew's stream now and see what he's doing.
Yeah.
But just follow us on Instagram and YouTube and all that. Can you just send them to his stream?
Right.
Huh?
I was going to say host. You can host Andrew's one even on here, I think, right? I don't know. He can tell us what's the best way to do that.
Yeah. Cool, but I think that's it for us.
Let's call it a day, bro.
Cool. Thank you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed. Did you guys like my lighting setup? This is pretty sweet. Look at that. We have different colors now. Man, this is so fancy. I look like one of those teenagers.
Mate, looks disco
streamers.
I'm gonna call you Disco Paulino. I love it.
Looks so cool, man. But anyway,
thanks, guys. We're gonna raid. I think we're gonna raid Andrew's stream now. So let's give that a shot. We'll see if it works. But all the best. Thank you, Paul. We'll see you soon, buddy. Thank
you, guys.